Hey everybody, welcome back to our Friday review here on the Cabral Concept. So great to have you. Excited to get into today's show where I'm going to share with you, you'll never have to go to one of those laboratories to do a sleep study ever again. If you've ever heard about a sleep study to see if you have sleep apnea, it used to be this wild experience. I will share that with you a little bit later on the show, and where you can now use all of this amazing at-home lab testing. You can actually find out your results right at home, doing an overnight sleep test in your own home. Pretty cool. I'll share all the details in just a few moments. And then a book review of the week. It's an oldie but a goodie, one of my favorites from back in the day that I'm now passing on to my daughter. So I'll share that with you. 2 research studies, white versus red wine and cancer risk. Does one lead to a greater cancer risk? I'll share the details of this brand new meta-analysis, and then also some really impressive AI-based work in terms of robotics and paralyzed individuals getting back the use of their limbs. I want to share that with you. It'll be a great one to end cap the show. All right. Let's kick it off. I always do a week in review. This is my birthday week. It's a big week, of course. We do all sorts of fun things over at Equal Life. Hopefully you've been a part of it. Every single year, I run my Big 5 labs myself. During this time of the year, I technically run it every 6 months, but during my birthday month, I run my blood work, I run my Big 5, and I make sure basically that all of my health checks out for another year. So that's what's going on. A lot of the fun things. We've got all sorts of founders-based sales, birthday sales, those types of things. If you're not a part of it, if you haven't seen what's going on, if you don't know what the Big 5 are, simply head on over to stevencabral.com/shop. For shows for this past week, Monday, hopefully you didn't miss them, but Monday was sometimes doing your best is not enough, and what to do in those certain circumstances to still get the results you're looking for, or at least not be so hard on yourself. That was Monday's show, episode 3335. Of course, all shows can be found at stevencabral.com/podcasts. All right, Tuesday's show was safer nicotine alternatives. If you've heard about using nicotine, if you're currently using nicotine right now, I went over the pros and cons last week. You're welcome to check out that show. But also, if you want a safer alternative, here's what you can use. I gave you my top 10. All right, Wednesday's show was if you can't sleep and you can't turn off your mind, here's what you need to do. There's 4 main reasons. I give you all of the different main reasons as to why you might not be able to sleep, and then what you can do from a lifestyle perspective, and also a safe, scientifically backed nutritional supplement perspective. All right. Yesterday's show was eat 1 handful of this a day, or at most, or I should say at minimum 3 times a week, to live a longer, healthier life. So much so that it reduced all-cause mortality by 20%. That means your chances of dying from any dis-ease in the world go down by 20%. Pretty amazing just doing that by eating a handful of these a day. So here's the crazy thing. These are things that you're never going to hear from allopathic medicine or your general practitioner, most likely, maybe 1 out of 100,000. And unfortunately, again, it's not unfortunate, but you have to seek out this information if you truly want to be a healthy individual and live a long, healthy life. But here in the Cabral Concept, we want to bring you all of these things absolutely free as tips that you can share with your family, with your friends, with your loved ones each and every day. Today's tips, today's show notes will be at stevencabral.com/3339. So first things first, we're going over our product review. This is one that my wife actually ran just about a week ago, and she said, hey, this was a great product. Well, she obviously shared it with me, and I knew she was doing it overnight, but it is a sleep test that you can do right at home. And it's funny because I did a sleep test in my early 20s. Again, I'm a complete insomniac. I have Addisons disease. I've got autoimmune issues. I've got type 2 diabetes, complete mess, right? My immune system is just totally dysfunctional. And since I couldn't sleep, and it's really difficult to recover from any dis-ease if you can't sleep, I did a sleep study. Well, a sleep study is pretty much one of the worst things that you can do in the world. You go into essentially a clinical hospital room, like a lab setting, but it's a lab. It's not even a hospital. It's a bunch of like scientists looking at a 2-way mirror. There's literally a window in your room that's a 2-way window or mirror, whatever you want to call it, and they watch you sleep So think about that. How easy or not easy would it be to fall asleep? Of course, it's not going to be easy when you know that you're lying in a hospital bed, essentially. And now it's gotten better for me. When did I do this? Like 25 years ago. But it's ridiculous. It really is. And what are they looking for? Well, at the end of the day, they're looking to see if you have any sleep apneas. Apneas are basically a cessation in breathing, and it could be, from snoring, it could be airway obstruction, it could be for many different reasons. But the thing is, what do they always recommend? It's just a CPAP. So it's literally, you do this thing, if you have sleep apneas, they're going to recommend a CPAP device. Well, I had a few apneas, but truthfully, I don't snore. I don't really have an airway obstruction. I have a deviated septum, but I can still breathe. And so, and I fixed that over the years through getting rid of foods I was sensitive to, for me, namely dairy. But anyway, for many people, that's the alternative, again, that conventional medicine gives them. Well, now, thanks to modern day functional medicine labs and at-home lab testing, there's a company, I have no affiliation with this company whatsoever, but it's called Lofta. And my wife used them, and I said, great. Let me do a recommendation of it. She said it was super easy. And I know my wife. I know how she sleeps. I know she doesn't have sleep apnea. I know that, right? But she wanted to run the test because she is really getting into, and has been over the many years, getting into learning more about health and all the biooptimizations and all of those things. And she's really talented and really smart at this as well. And so I love taking her opinion on a lot of these things. So here it is here, though. I'm going to explain it to you. It's really simple. All it is a watch that you wear. Okay. It is and if you're not watching this on video, you can at StephenCabral.com/3339 or on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, we thank you. We appreciate you as part of the growing community, now over 100,000 strong. Of course, we'd like you to subscribe, follow along for future videos coming out daily. But you've got the watch, you've got this finger sensor, which is measuring your oxygen, because a drop in oxygen can be an issue. And then this right here just gets attached to basically the top of the sternum or chest. And that just gets essentially taped right on. But it's very not uncomfortable, nothing like that. So it's a 3-point device. And it's looking for vibrations. That's part of the airway, for snoring, for, again, the cessation, the stopping of breath. But pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And then what do you do? Well, the data gets downloaded to their app. And based on the number of apneas you have or the breathing-based issues, it's going to recommend, again, lo and behold, a CPAP machine, right? So it's always recommending the same thing, a CPAP machine. If you don't know what that is, you can look that up online. But basically, it's a breathing-based device, a mask that you wear when going to bed in order to be able to get more oxygen. And so it's fine. Again, I just wish there was more than just saying, get a CPAP machine, because there can be a lot of reasons why you have sleep apnea. So you clearly, if you have sleep apnea, you have an inflammatory based issue, right? So we've seen tremendous things happen with people losing weight, with people going through a 21-day detox, with people rebalancing their gut, like all sorts of different things, right? Huge changes. Now, some people do have a shortened palate, meaning narrow palate. They have airway obstructions. They have all sorts of based issues. Now, again, they could just help them switch from sleeping on their back to sleeping on their side. So there's so many things that you can do. That's why I don't love that. Okay, if you have apnea, you're recommended a CPAP. So basically, everyone's recommended a CPAP. That's the downside. But the upside is that it really can test for sleep apnea. So, and this can help a lot of people, especially those, again, with undiagnosed sleep apnea. And they might wake up in the morning with a headache. They might wake up in the morning with, depression or just low mood, or it just takes them forever to get going. Could be lack of oxygen all night long. So that's a possibility. If you want to check it out, it's very simple, very straightforward. Those 3 devices you use at night, you link up their app. It's literally, here's the guide, instructions, get ready for bed. We'll need at least 4 hours of data. So again, you got to be in bed for at least 4 hours. Get the Watch app. So it's just the WatchPat app, it's called. So you download that, you follow a step-by-step guide, and then that is it. So it takes about, they say 5 minutes, probably 10 to 15 minutes to get it set up. That's it. Then the next day, you get your results right away. So that's pretty great as well, because usually a sleep test, it would take a week or 2 weeks to get your results. So like I said, I'm going to link them up. I have no affiliation whatsoever. However, I asked my team, reach out to them. see if we can get a discount. That's what we always try to do for all of these products for you. I'll tell you right now, as of the recording of this show, pretty great deal though. It's $189. That's pretty crazy. It'd probably be more than that for a copay for your insurance. I know it'd be more than that, that's for sure. So that is that. I will link them up today at stephencabral.com/3339. And of course, thank you to my wife for sharing that information. Next up is an oldie but a goodie, as I said, for a book. Now, here's what I'll share with you. My daughter's getting a little older now, not too old, but they're getting older. They're 10 and 12 years old. It's pretty wild because I've been talking about them on the podcast since they were 2 and 4 years old, because that's when I started the podcast. So now, I mean, they are voracious readers. So a lot of people say to me like, did you really read 3,000 plus books? I'm like, yes, I really read 3,000 plus books. I'm not looking for, a gold medal or anything like that. That's not the way that it works. I did it out of desperation. So I just want to say, like, I didn't do it to be like, oh, look how many books I read. I literally did it out of desperation. It's also how my brain learns. So during college, I was getting my degree and I was also studying. What else was I studying? Exercise physiology, strength and conditioning, nutrition. Those are the books that I would read. Once I got out of school, I started reading a lot more about psychology and of course, all about health and wellness and all those great things. But anyway, when I look at it, okay, I was reading somewhere around 3 to 5 books a week. It'd be like 3 to 4. And I know that sounds like a lot, but I also commuted 90 minutes to Boston, Massachusetts, and 90 minutes back each and every day. So I had a fair amount of time to read. But anyway, I've talked about that in previous shows. My daughters have read hundreds of books already, hundreds. They might actually be close to, no exaggeration, 500 to 600 books already, 10 and 12 years old. So again, it's just like some people like to read. Some people get a lot out of it. They get a lot out of it. What I'm trying to do is steer them more towards now, instead of just reading fiction, which they enjoy, and that's great, right? Because it keeps them off their iPad or TV or all those types of things as well, which we don't necessarily allow them to do all that. But what I want to do is now start to fill their minds with great information. So having said all of that, what I've done is I've set aside about 20 different books that I would love them to read. And I'm trying to coerce them. I'm trying to bribe them a little bit, but these are books that I know that they'll love. And so I've shared a few of those before. I'll continue to share them. And they're ones that I also enjoyed reading many years ago. Well, this book by Dan Millman is called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. Now, many people listening to this show will have already read it. Now, how long's it been since you read it? For me, it's probably been 15 years, at least 15 years. Way longer than that. But, it's been at least 15 years. It came out in 1980 or so. It didn't get huge traction, but then it was picked back up. And by the early 2000s, which is when I read it, it really became a bestseller. And so this book has been translated to many different languages. It is now a massive bestseller. It was even turned into a movie. I haven't read the movie. I would not, if I were you, don't watch the movie. It's a 200-page book. You'll love it. You'll fly through it. You'll read it within a week easily. So 200-page book. If you haven't read it before, it is about personal transformation, a journey of self-discovery, of dealing with real ups and downs in life, real hardships of real life, and then ultimately finding your way in realizing what true happiness and joy is all about. So check that out. That is The Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. And I fortuitously got to meet Dan Millman many years ago in Boston. He was actually doing a book tour. Must have been for maybe one of his latest books. And he was a little older then. He'd been writing for quite some time, and I got to have lunch with this individual, and it was quite a nice experience. So Dan's a great guy, very genuine, and you can check out that book. All right, let's move on to our research for the week: white versus red wine and cancer risk. I've actually gotten a couple of questions on this, but let me just read you the research. Okay, so this is published in, I believe, Nutrients. Yes, it was published in Nutrients literally just a few weeks back. And here's what they said. We conducted a comprehensive meta-analysis to assess whether red wine is truly a healthier choice than white wine. Our analysis included as many published epidemiological studies as possible that separately explore the relationship between red and white wine consumption and cancer risk. The results revealed no significant difference in cancer risk between red and white wine overall. However, we did observe a distinction when it came to skin cancer risk. So specifically, the consumption of white wine, but not red wine, was associated with an increased risk of skin cancer. In fact, the researchers calculated a 22% increased risk of skin cancer associated with white wine compared to red wine. The reason for this remains unclear. Researchers suggest that heavy consumption of wine may correlate to high-risk behaviors such as indoor tanning and inadequate sunscreen use. However, it is unclear why white wine in particular is the culprit. The study also found a stronger association between white wine intake and the increase in overall cancer risk among women. These findings warrant further investigations into potential underlying mechanisms. And then finally, alcohol, specifically the ethanol in alcoholic beverages, metabolizes into compounds that damages the DNA and proteins, contributing to cancer risk. In 2020, excessive alcohol consumption was linked to more than 740,000 cancer cases worldwide, accounting for 4.1% of all cancer. So here's the thing. We know that alcohol can lead to increased cancer risk. We know now that white wine leads to greater cancer risk, specifically skin cancer risk. Now, they don't know why. I'm going to go out, again, I don't know this for sure. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that white wine, is consumed maybe at a greater rate than red wine. I just know that when I see people drink white wine, they're often drinking multiple more glasses of white wine than red wine. I don't know if that's actually accurate or not. And although I don't think the sun is bad for you at all, that is for sure. I actually think the sun is beneficial for you. I think getting a sun burn is bad for you, but a suntan not bad for you. I think that could be a risk factor, obviously, as well. So if you're sitting in the sun, enjoying yourself, getting absolutely scorched by the sun, probably not ideal while drinking alcohol and damaging the DNA. And that includes skin cell DNA at the same exact time. So, maybe more remains to be seen as to why this is the case. We'll put it this way. We know that more than 2 drinks for women and more than 3 drinks for men on a weekly basis does increase cancer risk. So, as they say, consumer beware. All right, research study number 2, a paralyzed man moves robotic arm with his thoughts. When I read that headline, I had to dig deeper, right? So this literally just came out 5 days ago. 5 days ago. So I try to stay on top of this research. This was out of the University of California, San Francisco. The actual study was published in Cell. The study was called Sampling Representational Plasticity of Simple Imagined Movements Across Days Enables Long-Term Neuroprosthetic Control. So obviously that study name just flows right off your tongue. Why don't I do this? I'll make it easier. Head on over to stephencabral.com/3339. I'll link up all the studies today. All right, so here's the synopsis though. Researchers have enabled a man who is paralyzed to control a robotic arm through a device that relays signals from his brain to a computer. He was able to grasp, move, and drop objects just by imagining himself performing the actions. The device, known as a brain-computer interface, BCI, worked for a record 7 months without needing to be adjusted. Until now, such devices have only worked for a day or 2. So that's the big breakthrough. So these devices have worked in the past. Literally, they have kinetic-based devices where you can move a kind of pendulum baseball with your mind, pretty wild, from outside of your body. But these things are not, they're finicky. They really are. So if you were to attach a prosthetic-based arm, let's say, to an individual or hand, you'd want that to work obviously all the time, because if not, they go to pick something up or even just safety reasons, they would drop something or lose their grasp. So you need these things to really work. So 7 months without needing to be adjusted is a huge breakthrough. Now let's think about it in a different way. What if anyone was able to control a robot around their house or a device around their house using just their brain? So pretty wild as to what the future is going to bring. But I'll tell you right now, if you can conjure it up, if you can think about it right now, most likely it is going to be able to come to fruition. I truly believe this within most likely the next 30 to 50 years maximum. Now you might say, well, 50 years is a long time from now. I don't necessarily disagree, but let's say you're 60 years old right now. Okay, in 30 years from now, you'll be 90. I absolutely believe people listening to this show can make it to 90 years, but I also believe in the next 15 years or so, the ability for us to be able to rejuvenate and regenerate our bodies, there's going to be huge breakthroughs once quantum computing begins to become connected with artificial intelligence. So our ability to live longer. Now, again, I don't know if we'll break the 120-year barrier, but I know for sure there's going to be a whole lot more of us reaching 100 plus years old and getting to see so much of the future take place. So hopefully today's show was helpful. Hopefully it was interesting. If it was, of course, do feel free to share the show with anyone you believe could serve. Once again, all links, show notes, or products, books, research is at stephencabral.com/3339. And I will be back this weekend, starting tomorrow, with our Cabral House calls, answering all of our community's questions. Take care, everybody. Have an amazing weekend, and I'll talk with you soon. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you're getting our daily content, not missing out on anything functional medicine, wellness, weight gain, weight loss, anti-aging, living longer, stronger, and all of the most cutting-edge research. And if there's any topics you want to hear, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Take care.